are live at the Dawgs Table, and we are here to talk Cleveland Browns with you tonight. I'm your host, Craig Fountain, here with my co-host, Ryan Angelo. How's it going tonight, Ryan?
What's going on, buddy? How are you? I'm doing good.
Outstanding. Anxious to talk some Browns. If you're new to the show, we are a Cleveland Browns roundtable discussion show. Anybody can join. We will invite anybody and everybody that wants to join via a link in the comments at some point during the show, and you can come on and talk with us face to face. You can ask us questions. If you would prefer just to comment on Twitter and YouTube, you can comment. We can display it and interact with you. Craig, thanks for joining the show. He says dog check. And we have a great show. We have a great show coming out tonight. And how about Perion Winfrey? Speaking of the dog check. Excuse me. But Perion Winfrey has been barking like crazy all over Instagram.
I think he's still barking.
He might still be barking. Norman, thanks for joining the show. Craig, it was great to see you last weekend as well. Top Dog Tailgate works with the City Dogs of Cleveland, who is a friend of the show. And they had a tailgate event in Berea, Ohio that I attended to. Craig Foster did the trip up from Southern Ohio. We got to see all kinds of Browns Twitter faces and Browns Facebook faces. We got to put faces to the handles. Voice of the Lamb podcast did a live show. Kevin Arnold was up there, always positive J. We tossed the football around with Ed in Columbus a little bit. Nice. Craig, of course, was there. Everybody was there. So it was a blast, and it was for a great cause. Top Dog Tailgate, check them out. Man, I can't talk tonight. It's going to be a long night, Ryan. Right. I'm already stumbling all over my words, but they're at West 3rd and Summit on Twitter and Facebook. That's their tailgate spot. Red Leg, thanks for joining the show.
Red Leg, what up, buddy?
All right, so big show tonight. Lots to go over. Lots of Deshaun Watson stuff to talk about. But we're not going to go there quite yet. So the first thing I want to start off with, and it happened pretty quickly this year, and I'm glad to see that the Browns have signed 7 out of their 9 draft picks already. Normally, at least sometimes, we have to wait around a little bit. It's nice to see them get done. However, the 2 they haven't signed are Cade York, the 4th-round kicker, and Perion Winfrey, defensive tackle. So it's nice to see them get these signings done. Barry, we are ready. Are you ready? Are you ready? Oh, he's coming in. All right, Barry has hacked the show. So Barry has the link no matter what somehow, even before we post it in the comments. So he will come in and harass us. But
I don't know how I feel about that.
As long as he doesn't pull out the moose, we're good. So all right, so Browns signed 7 of their 9 draft picks. That's just a brief little news bit for you guys. And then let's get into our Twitter poll. Here is our Twitter poll of the week. All right, Ryan's over there jamming. He loves the
music.
The segment tune. Barry, you got to change your username before I bring you in. We're not doing that one. That's happened before. We've had to tell him to change his username. We've had to tell him to put a shirt on, pants on, all kinds of stuff. But here is the weekly Twitter poll. What position will the Browns address in free agency before training camp? Tight end, defensive tackle, linebacker, or other? Comment below. Could be none at all. Ryan, do you think that the Browns are done in free agency, or do you think that we're going to see a signing coming up?
No, I don't think they're done. I think there's going to be something that's going to happen. Probably not going to be the fireworks that we were all hoping for when this free agency started, I don't think. But there's some guys out there that could be quite helpful for this team. I think for the Twitter poll, I voted defensive tackle. I think that they should still bring in a seasoned vet. God, I can't even talk today either. What is going on? A seasoned veteran at the position. somebody to, put next to Winfrey and kind of give a little bit of guidance, a little bit of, mentoring. But I think something will happen,
Barry, I don't know if you voted in the Twitter poll or not, but how would you have voted here? Tight end, defensive tackle, linebacker, other. What position will the Browns address in free agency before training camp, if any at all?
I think we're going to go defensive tackle.
Defensive tackle?
Yeah.
All right. Red Leg went with defensive tackle. Norman says agreed, Browns aren't done, especially with Clowney out there. Craig says Clowney, please sign. Is it worrying you, Ryan, that Clowney hasn't signed yet?
Nope. He is a man of few words. He beats to his own drum, and he is going to ride it out as long as he has to. He is not going to come to anything that is voluntary. He's going to wait until all that stuff's over with and most likely sign after that. He likes to do his own thing. So he's a different kind of fella for sure.
Mr. Angelo, we are sponsored by Labatt Blue Light. We only drink Labatt Blue products on the show. That's what he's got. That's what he got. Ice cold.
Screwed the label. Screwed the label. There you go.
Right. There we go.
So refreshing.
Norman says Hicks. He would like to see Hicks at defensive tackle. We were actually talking about this before the show. Ryan, what are your thoughts on Hicks?
I love Hicks as a player. I think he probably has the most upside of all the defensive tackles that are available right now. But that being said, he's got a decent injury history, and I think that's probably going to scare the Browns off. It's tough because they're in a rock and a hard place situation. There's not a lot of D tackles left out there. They brought in Brian. So what?
Where's Olivier Vernon at?
Sitting at home.
Olivier Vernon. You know what? So Barry brings up an interesting point.
Cheap.
I haven't heard. What's that?
Cheap.
I haven't heard anything on the Olivier Vernon front, and actually, until Barry just said something, I completely forgot. Do we even have any updates on Olivier Vernon?
I don't know. I'll Google it.
He fell off the face of the earth.
So, between him aging and some other things, I don't know if that's something that they're going to investigate. Anybody in the comments? Red Leg says, I'd love to have him back. Craig Foster says, Sue's an option. For me, I think that the Browns are going to be active in free agency still. I think that even though it feels like there's not a whole lot of roster spots up for grabs right now, I think that they're still going to try to get better. And one of the things that's going to define them as a good team is when we're going to be letting good players go for better players.
Says he's ready to go.
Olivier Vernon's ready to go?
Says free agent Olivier Vernon expects to be full strength by 2022 for 2022 return. That was March 3rd, 3 weeks ago. No, that's not really about him. Then there's March 4th. There was an article about could Vernon be back with the Browns. Yeah, says he's going to be ready to go by 2022. He could be. You're going to get him for probably damn close to the veteran minimum.
I think it would have to be the veteran minimum
with a bunch of incentives, and at that point in time, why would you not? If you can get him for the veteran minimum, sign him. You know what he can do. And
now, are you talking outside, Barry, or are you talking D tackle? Because he can't play inside.
Yeah, I'm talking edge rusher.
Okay.
He gives you that
outside.
He gives you that. He because Clowney can play inside. You know what I mean? And Vernon's starting quality. So, even if you don't start him, but there's different packages you can use him as an edge rusher and move Clowney on the inside, especially, on some of them third and intermediate downs. They're kind of, maybe a 3rd and 5 that, could possibly still be a rushing down or whatever. You can see a really good package there with Clowney in the middle and Vernon on the end. Granted he's healthy, but there's also a reason he hasn't been signed. With his upside, because people know what he can do, and with him being available for the veteran minimum, you'd think he'd be snagged up by now.
Yeah, and what here's what Redleg just said. Speaking of minimum, surprised to see Landry sign for what he did. Redleg, this probably actually lends some credibility to the reports that the Browns never offered him more than the veteran minimum, which this time last year, that would have been absolutely incredibly insulting. But, nobody else really did either. I mean, he's been on the market for a while. He knew where his value was at when he signed with the New Orleans Saints. So, it's one of those things. And Craig here says, Redleg, we could have signed him. I don't know why they didn't. There was clearly a reason why they didn't, especially at that number. And, Landry's mistake might have been not taking a number like that earlier on in free agency, or at some point, last year, seeing the writing on the wall. Maybe they don't believe in Landry. I don't know. That's hard to say. It doesn't taste good. Norman says, remember the Richardson situation.
Eerily similar, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another situation where the Browns front office didn't do a player any favors. Are you concerned that might deter people from coming here, Ryan?
No. No. I mean, it's not going to be how they handle a contract with Sheldon Richardson or Jarvis Landry. I think Jarvis Landry is a professional. I don't think he's going to be dogging on the Browns. I don't think he's going around and telling other players not to come here. It's just not in his DNA. It's just he's too loyal. So I think he's going to just move on and go home and do his thing. But I don't see him bad-mouthing the Browns anytime soon. If he was going to do it, he would have done it already.
All right. Makes sense. And that's going to kind of lead us to our results. And then we're going to continue on with this conversation because this is a perfect segue into our next segment. Here are the results in the Twitter poll. What position will the Browns address in free agency before training camp? Tight end, 61%. Defensive tackle and linebacker each at 9.9%. And other or none was 19.2%. So do those results surprise you at all, Ryan? I know we've been sitting here talking about defense.
Yeah, I just it's tight end's not the position that everybody's been clamoring for all offseason. So it is surprising that Browns fans have voted that way. I could see a need for that third tight end to come in. I think it's probably going to be more unrestricted, or undrafted free agent market that they're going to bring in a tight end. I don't see them going free agency wise with tight end. It's just my opinion.
Well, we signed all them. We signed all them former basketball players, right?
Yeah, there you go.
There are project tight ends. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You're probably going to see one of them. Is like,
they're definitely projects, and the one was the younger brother of the Ohio State guy. What's his name? That went to Seattle. Oh man. Anyways, they were showing him putting on his helmet for the first time, which was interesting. And then he tweeted about it and said, putting on a helmet is something different. So it's, I mean, project might be an understatement, but listen.
I don't.
Okay, so you guys in the comments, listen, you guys in the comments, tight end, you guys are surprised. Malik Smith, Craig, thank you. Look, Antonio Gates did it. Antonio Gates tried out for the San Diego Chargers with zero intention of playing professional football. He actually went and tried out for the San Diego Chargers to accompany a friend that was trying to make the team. He ended up making the team, and look at the career he had. So it's not unheard of. And when you look at these guys' sizes and frames, don't be surprised if one of them has hands and they're coachable, that they take on the project. But listen, go ahead, Barry.
We all know how the Urban Meyer situation down in Jacksonville ended up, but I mean, even he took a flyer on Tebow just because he's an athlete. He's a freak athlete, and Tim Tebow being 5 or 6 years younger, I bet you he would have succeeded at tight end. I mean, the dude almost made professional baseball after not swinging a bat in how many years. So an athlete's an athlete. When you're athletic, you're athletic. And if you're coachable, you're coachable. You're probably not somebody that's going to make a difference this year or next year, but somebody you put on the practice squad and you coach up, and you never know.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of them special teams hands departments.
So
hands team.
Here's what I think, and here's my opinion, and the discussion's going to segue to the best remaining free agent options for the Browns. And for those of you wondering about tight end is probably the weakest spot on our offense right now. We have David Njoku and we have Harrison Bryant, but for all those 3 tight end sets we run, you need a third guy.
Where's
And
Carlson?
What's that?
Where's Carlson?
He's still on the roster, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, see, here's the thing. We can upgrade that spot. I, in particular, am a fan of upgrading that spot with somebody that knows Stefanski's system that just so happens to be a veteran. Now, the guys that we're talking about, both at tight end and defensive tackle and edge and free agency, they go against the Browns' philosophy, right?
Oh,
But
I know who you're thinking of.
So do
I'm
I.
Wouldn't be a bad
going
idea
with
either.
Mr. Kyle Rudolph.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mr. Dependable.
Mhm.
Kyle Rudolph is very dependable. And at this point in his career, he's inexpensive. He's experienced. He knows Stefanski's system. He's sure-handed. And, he's a guy that you can count on at tight end 3. And actually, from a mentorship perspective, especially with Harrison Bryant, that could be a match made in heaven. The comments are blowing up over here.
Even with Njoku, because Njoku's still raw on a lot of things. He's just another one of them guys that's just a freak athlete. That's why he excels, because he's such a freak athlete.
Yeah.
But if you could hone in his skills a little bit, he could be, a Hall of Fame tight end. He's got that type of talent, but he's just not, you know what I mean? He's not honed in.
Yeah, appreciate you joining, Paul. Good to see you joining the show. Thanks for watching. Stick around. Kyle Rudolph, Joe, thanks for joining the show, especially the basketball player turned tight end. I'm interested to see what those guys have to offer. I just, especially with us being in win now mode, I would not be shocked if we brought in a guy that would be a cheap but sure-handed tight end 3, especially that's a veteran. Somebody like Kyle Rudolph, yeah. I personally think would be perfect.
Maybe Tim Tebow.
No. I'm out there. I'm out on Tebow. Njoku has been the best blocking tight end on the Browns the last 2 years. Ryan, would you agree with that statement?
Yeah. I mean, it's an area that he has significantly improved in. I mean, you could tell early on that they didn't trust him to do the blocking, but he's significantly improved in that aspect of his game for sure.
Yeah, and Austin Hooper is not available. He's going to be falling forward in Tennessee. So that's where we're going to be at. All right, so Ryan, forget the positional stuff. All right, we kind of went over some positional stuff. Overall, who's your top 3 best remaining free agent options for the Browns?
Top 3. Might not be realistic, but my first guy that I would really love the Browns to bring in, and we just talked about this before the show, James Bradbury, cornerback from the Giants, 29 years old. He's only missed, I think, 5 or less games in the last 5 years, or 2 games in the last 5 years.
I think you said three in the last 5.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's extremely dependable. I think you can never have enough corners. I think it's important with the way the league is going, teams with tons and tons of wide receivers. It's a passing league right now. It is what it is. But I think he would be a sneaky good pickup. They've got a lot of cap space available still. Could probably get him on a 1 or 2 year deal. And to address what he just said, Sue, he would probably be my number 2 guy. It used to be Akeem Hicks, but I think Sue would take that spot from him. I think he would be more dependable. But I don't know if it's going to be realistic for the Browns. I don't think that they're going to want to put that much money into him. He's one of those guys that likes to get paid. So I don't think that it's going to be him. And then the third guy would be Kyle Rudolph. We've already talked about him. I think he would be a great pickup for the tight end room. Extremely good leader, very dependable, like you said, sure-handed. And he knows the system. I mean, you can't, when you have a guy that's a plug and play like that, it's almost a no-brainer. So I would not be shocked to see him get added to the team. But those would be my top 3.
You're muted, dummy.
You're muted, buddy.
It happens once a show. I'm going to go ahead and give you mine, but mine aren't any more realistic. Actually, they're probably a little less realistic. But this is all about a wish list. We're having fun. Best remaining free agents. Number one, I am going to say, man, you guys are going to roast me for saying this. Rob Gronkowski, tight end. I mean, he's only 33.
Juicy.
It's juicy. It's juicy.
It's juicy.
I'd be the first one with a jersey.
What's that?
I'd be the first one with a jersey.
Right.
I'm a huge Gronk fan.
Craig, before you go on, let me clarify.
He's my spirit animal.
Let me clarify one thing real quick before you go on. I did not include Clowney in those top three because I consider him coming back. I think it's going to happen. I think we're the best position for him. So I did not include him in my top three just because I'm already including him in the roster.
I'm on the same mindset as you. And listen, Joe, you're probably right. Again, this is my wish list of best remaining free agents. They're not necessarily all that realistic, but listen, I also really like Bradbury. I think you're onto something there, and that's certainly a good option. I am not going to go defensive tackle with my last one. I can finally wear the jersey I'm wearing right now because he's not a Pittsburgh Steeler, and I would love to see a Joe Hayden homecoming. Best remaining, I don't know if he belongs on the list of the best remaining cornerbacks on the market, but I would love to see Joe Hayden go out a Cleveland Brown with some success, more success than he had on the Pittsburgh Steelers. So you guys can roast me. You guys can roast me for those. Again, not realistic, but yeah, those are my best remaining free agents. Barry, you got anybody in mind?
I'd really like to see us, bring in some wide receiver depth. I'm thinking maybe somebody like Clifford Franklin or Charlie Tweeter.
You're fired.
Can we exit this guy? Put it backstage.
No, honestly, I think Olivier Vernon. I think he'd be. I'm big on that. I think he'd be a great signing if he's healthy. Like, you're gonna get him for veteran minimum. Like, he had 9 sacks the last year he played for us. You got nothing to lose by giving him the veteran minimum. Obviously, we can talk about bringing Gronk in, who's probably like my favorite player right now in the NFL.
I'm going to throw out a couple names.
I didn't
here.
think about the Joe Hayden thing, man, but that'd be interesting to see somebody come back home, for sure.
No, Red. No.
Redleg, you shut your mouth when you're talking to me. See you,
Take
Paul.
it easy, Paul. Thanks for being here, buddy.
All right. So, Ryan, I'm gonna put you on the spot. I'm gonna throw some names out, and you tell me yes or no if you would be interested. Maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most interested. Let's go with Akeem Hicks on a scale of 1 to 10.
7. Injury history concerns me.
Edge Trey Flowers. He's 29 years old. He's highly graded with PFF. Most recently with the Chargers, I believe. Not sure.
Doesn't pique me. 5.
Hey, I gotta go. I might be back, but I gotta go.
All right, see you, Barry.
Doesn't get me excited. Maybe a vet minimum guy is a backup, but
Julio Jones, wide receiver, 33 years old.
Best days are past him. Pass.
Offensive. I'm sorry, not offensive. Let's go Anthony Barr at linebacker. We haven't talked much about linebacker.
I'd take him. Veteran
minimum. All right. Last one. Let's go with Larry Ogunjobi, former Cleveland Brown. He's only 28 years old.
Yeah. I like Larry. I think he's still raw in some aspects of his game. I think he was improving a lot in Cincinnati, but we did talk about this before the show as well. The way that failed physical stuff happened with Chicago was kind of concerning, and the way that you explained that to me with your thoughts really kind of makes sense. Um, it's concerning on how they handled that situation. So I kind of tend to lean on there may have been a significant or severe ailment that somebody found. But I mean, if it turns out to be, not a bad situation with the injury or whatever it was that scared Chicago off, maybe Chicago signed him and just had second thoughts after that came out. I don't know, but um, I'd take him back, but it's a little nerve wracking. I'd have to know for sure that whatever it wasn't, severe, obviously.
Yeah, and what Ryan's talking about, just from what I told him before the show, what alarms me, it sends off all these red flags and all these alarm bells when they actually signed him to a pretty substantial contract. Like the agreement was substantial. And then he shows up and he fails the physical, and it must have been far more serious than they expected. They knew he was injured. It must have been far more serious than they expected. Usually when a player feels a physical, like it's a byline in the news, right? Like it scrolls across the bottom on ESPN. Ogunjobi feels physical with Bears, still a free agent, or it's a footnote on profootballtalk.com or something like that. They actually like released a statement and explained to fans, and they like thanked him. Kind of. It was weird.
Yeah.
Like it was like a thanks for nothing kind of, like, we regret to inform that Ogunjobi failed a physical, blah, blah, blah. Like they had to explain themselves. It was really just bizarre, if you ask me, how they handled the situation, which kind of alarms me. But it's one of those things where if he was healthy, it would be nice also to come back, have him come back and see him be successful. Now we'd be team 3 in 3 years, which is interesting. And he started off pretty good for us. And then like every year there was a descent, right? He didn't get better. He got a little bit worse each year. He was taking steps backwards. And then as soon as he left town, he started ascending and actually had some pretty good production. So I'm not sure if what the motivation was or what changed, or was it the system here? Was it the coaching here? I don't know what it was, but he's somebody that if you can get everything out of him that he has to offer, he could be extremely productive. And I think it would be exciting to see that. I'm going to invite you guys in to the show. I'm going to post the link in the comments. But before you click the link to come in, have something to bring to the table. We're going to go back to that a little bit. I want you guys to bring a subject to the table, ask us a question, bring up something you want to talk about. The show is not just about me and Ryan coming on and talking at you. We want to talk with you. Okay, so you guys get to kind of control the second half of the show. I'm going to do the dog of the week. I'm going to post the link in the comments. And if you have something to bring to the table, then click the link, come on in and chat with us. So I'm going to go ahead and post that link now. Look forward to talking with some of you guys. And we are going to this week's Dog of the Week. Here we go. All right. So Ryan's jamming out over there once again. We have a repeat of the Dog of the Week from last week. I mentioned earlier, but City Dogs of Cleveland is an outstanding organization. And one of the reasons that we're involved with them, and some of this is coming from the tailgate that I went through this past weekend. It's really, you get reminded when you interact with the staff, the volunteers, and see what they're out there doing in the community. They brought some pups out to this tailgate, and they take the dogs that nobody else wants, the ones that nobody believes they can get adopted, and they go the extra mile to try to find these dogs a home. And just because they're the toughest to get adopted doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them, man. Some of these dogs that they had, they're obviously mostly pitties, pit bulls, mixes, mutts, things like that. But that's really the only reason why some people, get nervous. But These dogs were rolling over. They were greeting everybody. They were licking everybody. There's not a mean bone in these dogs' body. So please, if you're in the market for a dog, all right, if you are searching for a dog to give them their forever home and you are looking to adopt, which we highly recommend, please consider getting hold of City Dogs of Cleveland. Meet a couple dogs. Worst case scenario, you say it's not a good fit for me. Best case scenario, you find your best friend. All right. So this is our City Dogs of Cleveland Dog of the Week. Here we go. This is Hayden. We have Hayden, who is once again the subject of the photography, and he is about 50 pounds, completely housebroken, does fine when you're away from the home, and he is okay with other dogs. He is a model for a photographer who is his foster parent, and there's another photo of Hayden there. You can reach City Dogs of Cleveland to inquire about Hayden or any of the other pups there at City Dogs CLE on Twitter, at City Dogs Cleveland on Facebook. And their phone number is 216-664-3476. So there you go. Inquire with them about Hayden. If you would like some help getting in touch with them, message me, message Ryan, DM us, DM the show.
Absolutely.
We will actually help you get in contact with them. We will connect you with them and go from there. If you guys aren't familiar with City Dogs of Cleveland also, they actually work with the Cleveland Browns. They were on a concession stand. Ryan, I'm not sure if you knew this. Our longtime viewers know this. They actually operate a concession stand right outside the dog pound. I think it's section 121. All the proceeds go to the dogs from the concession stand, which is pretty cool.
Very cool.
So we're good friends with them. Make sure you check them out. All right, let's bring in our friends, Ryan.
Oh boy,
we have a couple friends here. Redleg,
what up, buddy?
Good evening, guys. How are you?
And we have
Hanging in
Norman.
there.
How's it going, Norman?
How y'all doing?
Hey,
How you
Norman.
doing?
What's up, buddy?
Hey,
How are you?
what's up, Redleg?
All right, Redleg, what are you bringing to the table?
I just received an article from my wife from PFT via NBC Sports that, yeah, right, that in one of Deshaun Watson's depositions, he admitted that one of the therapists was actually crying at the end of massage, and that he later apologized via text, which is a bit strange. So
it is, yeah. If you're looking for kind of what I think about that is, we've dug into some of the deposition stuff before. We had attorney Blake Weiner on the show. He went through some of how these depositions work and things like that. And we got a leaked video. And the reason I bring that up is because I'm interested to see the context surrounding it. Now, the fact that he admitted that is a little strange, right? And probably even alarming, right? Like, to what good reason, if nothing happened, would there be for a massage therapist to end a session in tears? With that being said, and I actually have that article pulled up. Ryan and I were talking about it a little bit for the show, so we're somewhat familiar with the situation. And I'll give you the quote here. Watson said that he didn't know why she was crying, and that she claimed that Watson intentionally touched her inappropriately, which made her cry. And then Watson texted, and this is a quote, and you can find this on profootballtalk.com or anybody else covering the story. He said, and I quote, "Sorry about you feeling uncomfortable. Never were the intentions. Let me know if you want to work in the future. My apologies." Now, they asked why he apologized. And here was his response. And this is a quote. "Yes, because she was teary-eyed and I was trying to figure out what was going on. So I assumed that she was uncomfortable in whatever reason. And we talked about working in the future. And so I said, we can work in the future. Just let me know. And then I sent my apologies as whatever reason she was teary-eyed for." Now, something that sticks out to me here, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong. You guys, Ryan, you have kids? Redleg?
I do.
Redleg,
yeah.
right?
Right
yep,
here one.
Yep. Norman, you? So you ever get the kid, like, you you force them to apologize, or they have to apologize, and they, instead of saying I'm sorry for blank, they say I'm sorry for whatever I did.
Yep.
You know, like, I don't really like the way that sounds. Now, he's not going to say I'm sorry for acting inappropriately. That would be that would hurt his case. That would go against his case. But it is alarming. Now,
I don't think so.
we're going to get more into the Deshaun Watson stuff, I have a feeling, before the end of the show. Ryan, what are your thoughts? So mine, just to summarize, because I was kind of all over the map there. So mine, it is a little bit alarming. There are some red flags there. I'm curious about the rest of the context of everything that happened, but it is concerning for me to read that. What about you, Ryan?
First thing I'll say, and I
You're
say
muted.
this every time.
No,
He's good.
you're not muted. Can everybody else hear him?
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. All right, proceed.
Now I'm all confused. No. So
No, you're good.
the same thing that I always say is context is everything, right? Context of the conversation, context of the question, context of the situation. I said this in our first podcast together. I'm more of a pessimist in the way that I think of things in reality, right? So I look at something and I look at it and I say, okay, well, common sense says that there's probably something that went on here. To what extent or to how inappropriate it was, I can't comment because I don't know the facts. The facts aren't out there, right? So I'm going to look at this man and I'm going to say he's innocent until he's proven guilty. He's innocent until someone shows me definitive proof that he has done something wrong. That being said, I'm also a realist, right? So I say, listen, there's probably a good chance that maybe something happened. Maybe he said something or made a comment that was inappropriate. And there's probably going to be a suspension. I just am prepared for that because of who I am as a person and how I think about things in life. I'm fully prepared mentally that he's going to get suspended for a certain amount of time. How long, I don't know, but I don't necessarily see it as alarming just because context is everything. John McClane is a Houston-based reporter. He's, very Houston-based. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to badmouth anybody on live. But context is everything, guys. I mean, the context of the conversation, the context of the question, we don't know. We weren't in the room. Nobody knows. So all those people out there that are freaking out and saying that he's going to get suspended for, a full season, 2 seasons, just calm down because we don't know. Nobody knows the truth until it comes out. And when that happens, then we can all react to it. But I say that there was probably something that happened. Maybe it was, a comment or something, but, we'll see what happens.
When my audio went out, were you still able to hear me? Like, was my mic working? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So it's working now. We're good. Okay. So, Norman, what are your thoughts?
All right. I'm going to look at it like this, and you kind of, Craig, you kind of spoke on it, but this is how I look at it. When you said, when you raised, or did you ever tell your kids you need to go apologize, right? So to me, and when I saw that article, and I just glanced at it, but I saw the part that you mentioned. And if I had been around someone working closely with them, and all of a sudden they look like something upset them, I would be, you ask, hey, are you all right? Is something on your mind or whatever? And, a lot of times, depending on how well that person knows you, they may not open up. So they might say no, even though you can tell something's not right. So in that situation, I would have thought he was a bit of douche, excuse my language, if he had not said something to that person, saying basically what he said. Hey, look, if it was something I said or did, it wasn't intentional because I'm not aware of anything, but obviously, you seem upset. So if I did anything, I'm sorry. I still would like to work with you. If you feel the same way, please give me a call back or just let me know what's going on. And that's, to me, that's like asking for some more clarification, letting them know, look, it wasn't whatever. If I did do something, I was clueless about it. So please let me know so I don't do it again. And that kind of thing. To me, that gives credit to him for doing that. If somebody's upset and you don't even acknowledge it, wow. that's
Yeah.
how I look at you. So
Right.
considering, what his upbringing is, where he grew up at and everything. And I'm gonna say this for a lot of people who have Southern roots, that's how you would tend to act, I would think. So I'm looking at that and saying no fire. Okay, unless she can definitively describe and maybe show something that he did, I'm not buying it, especially after you still got those 16 women whose affidavits were, hey, the session went well. I think he's a great guy. I asked him, can I work with him again? And the fact that this whole thing started after Deshaun basically told him, I'm not playing another snap for y'all. Y'all better just trade me. And the guy who's leading this lawsuit for the plaintiffs being so close to the owner just smacks of, we're going to try to ruin his chances of getting traded by tarnishing his name and make him come back to us on his knees, and that didn't work. So then what do? Well, we're going to make some outrageous demands and see if the teams balk at what we're asking for. That didn't work either.
Red leg. I'm curious because you brought this to the table. What are your thoughts?
I agree with Ryan. You can't convict a man or woman or anyone really just for thoughts or stuff being said. You have to they have to be convicted and found guilty. If not, we're a terrible society. Same thing with Ryan again, though. I'm going to say that statement, but then also agree that 22 women is a lot. And then this statement is just a little bit like, why would you start crying? Right? I understand that. And then Norman had a different view altogether, which I'm sitting there going, yeah, that makes sense too. If you're just apologizing because, hey, we've all been in those stupid situations where something dumb has happened and you're just like, I feel terrible or I feel weird. But hey, how are you doing? Hey, I'm sorry. It's kind of awkward. I apologize if something happened, because it happens in everyday life to all of us. So seeing that point of view really gets the other side of the argument too. Like I don't know, like you guys, I have no idea if he's guilty or not. I mean, no one does except for Watson and really Watson and the other guy, the plaintiff. So, I mean,
it's tough. And something
Yeah.
you said here, Red, like that I want to point out, and it's going to segue into what I had lined up for us to talk about next is we can't convict him yet, right? And he deserves due process and to go through the trial and everything. However, the court of public opinion is very real, but what is even more real than the court of public opinion is the court of Roger Goodell. He is the judge, jury, and executioner when it comes to these situations. Now, when it comes to civil cases, the precedent that's been set in the past. Now, I'm saying precedent. Now, this is very different than law precedent. And I'm not a lawyer, right? But when you set a precedent in law, generally that precedent is followed until a new precedent is set. And that doesn't happen very often. However, I'm going to put it a better way than precedent. We say precedent, but I like to say, in the past, this is what has generally happened. And what has generally happened in the past is nothing happens until after the civil suits are resolved, good or bad. And it doesn't matter actually the outcome of this civil suits. He can punish them however he wants. Now, just because he's always waited doesn't mean he's going to wait. In this case, he could set a new precedent, and he could do it right now if he wanted to. All he has to do is make a decision, and he can do it. There's nobody to tell him that he can't. And maybe there would be lawsuits and this and that and the other, who knows? But there are reports, and they've been verified, that essentially Deshaun Watson has been meeting with the NFL investigators since Monday. This, to me, signals a beginning to an end. Ryan, I don't know how much you've read up on this. or heard or what. But let me what do you think's gonna happen here? What do you anticipate? Do you think they're gonna wait till after the civil trials? Because that would be 2023, most likely. Do you think that he's going to act before training camp? Do you think he's going to act between training camp and the regular season? There are so many big things happening that the timing of this is so important for the Cleveland Browns. Now, I should preface this, and sorry, I asked you a question, then I kept talking. I'll get there one second. I just want to add that the Browns knew what they were getting into, right? They aren't owed anything by the NFL. They are not owed an explanation. We as fans may feel like we're owed an explanation, but they got into this knowing very well they weren't going to know the timetable. Anything can happen. It can happen now. It can happen later. Anything can happen from no punishment to a Trevor Bauer suspension. Anything can happen. All right. So with that being said, let me go back to my original question. Ryan, when do you think the timing of this is going to happen? What do you anticipate if you had to take a educated guess?
I don't think they're going to wait for the civil suits, to be honest with you. I think it's going to come before that. It's just too much publicity. There's too much that goes into it. It's too big right now. Chris Spann has a comment down here that's, he said that there's some language in the new CBA that takes a little bit of the power away from Goodell as far as him overruling the independent arbitrator who's going to make the decision on, or the recommendation on the penalty, right? This is the same lady who gave 6 games to Ezekiel Elliott with absolutely zero evidence whatsoever. She gave him 6 games. Okay. It's the same exact lady who's doing the Watson investigation. I do not believe Goodell can overrule her.
He can.
He can. Okay. Cause
Yes.
I wasn't sure if the language had changed, his power in that situation, but she does rule with a heavy fist. And she's, very tapped in the law world. It's going to be interesting. I anticipated a suspension just because that's the way I live and that's the way I see things. And I think it's going to come, if not, before the season, very close to it. It's going to be soon. I think they usually wait to interview the defendant, until the very end. She likes to wait until the very end. And that's one of her last steps, is to bring all of the evidence and all of the information that she's gathered to that person and says, here is what I've found. And I wouldn't be surprised if in this situation that there's some type of settlement with the NFL on, a specific punishment. Let's get this over with for all parties involved. There's too many eyes on it. It's just, I can't see them sitting around and going, or Roger Goodell coming out in the media and saying, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to sit on my hands until 2023 when they finally, finish all this stuff. I just don't see it happening. It's just not realistic to me. I don't think it's good publicity for the league. And I think that's all he really cares about, to be honest with you. I think he cares about what the league looks like and what's best for the league, and he's going to do what he wants. So that would be my opinion. I think it's going to come sooner rather than later. So I'm not saying tomorrow, but I definitely think it's going to come before the season.
Yeah. And, here's the thing. Some people in the national media disagree with what I said, and they feel like Roger Goodell in the NFL owes us some sort of resolution sooner rather than later. Mike Florio, and I know that not everybody is a fan of Pro Football Talk or Mike Florio in general. Most of us Browns fans are not, because I swear he's a closet Steelers fan. I think most people would say that. But he started Pro Football Talk, I don't know, 20 years ago. He was a lawyer. Like, the guy's a lawyer, right? So he's got a little bit of an inside track on how some of this stuff works. So, Redleg, do you think that the NFL owes us action now as opposed to later? How do you feel both, if you look at it from a fan perspective, does your opinion change?
They don't owe the Browns fans anything, because they don't owe anything to the Browns either. They know what they're getting into. I think realistically, the only option that Goodell really has left is to look like a good guy through all the media, like, look, we're punishing this man because he did bad. When does that come? If they're going to be dramatic, right before the season starts, first preseason game maybe. But that is probably one of their only plays come out of us looking positive, saying, "Hey, look, we punished him. We think he did wrong. So if the courts don't think he did, well, I mean, that's one of the only power plays that's kind of left. I just,
personal conduct policy. I mean, that's what it's essentially is coming down to, right?
Yeah.
There's no legal proceeding to fall back on. What Roger Goodell and the NFL is going to fall on is the personal conduct policy for players, and that's the end of it. I just don't see him sitting on his hands. He never has in the past. There's too much publicity involved with it, with too many different organizations outside of the Cleveland Browns. He's probably getting pressure from multiple different owners. He's getting pressure from sponsors. He's getting pressure from donors. He's getting pressure from tons and tons of organizations that have to do with women's rights and sexual assault rights and things of that nature, right? So there's a lot that goes into this other than the little bubble that we live in as the Cleveland Browns.
Yep.
He doesn't owe the Cleveland Browns anything, but there's a lot more people that have a lot more power that are looking for a resolution and want to know what's going on with this. And I think that's what's going to end up being the result.
Real quick, Norman. Real quick, I see Norman raising his hand. So I think what'll be interesting is if something is done sooner rather than later. The most telling part of it will be whether or not there is an appeal from Deshaun Watson. If we get news that says, hey, Deshaun Watson gets a 6-game suspension, he will not appeal. There's probably going to be a conversation of, hey, why don't we just figure out a game plan for this? Like, you take this, you don't appeal, we'll just squash it, end it right now. Because at the end of the day, I feel like that even if in all 22 or 23 or however many cases there are, even if all of them come to a resolution in Deshaun Watson's favor, the publicity that's come from this, the fallout that's come from this, whether it's his fault or not, it lies on his shoulders, and it painted the league in a bad light, and that's not fair. But when it comes to personal conduct policy, I think that they would still do some sort of punishment. I don't think he's going to get off with nothing no matter what. If there's a way that he can accept a punishment, not fight it, get it swept under the rug without admitting guilt, I'd be willing to bet he'd take it. What do you think, Norman?
I'm gonna be disagreeing with a lot of this. I was gonna bring up the CBA special counsel who's going to rule on this. And I was just watching a report earlier on Cleveland.com, and they were talking about the lady who's doing this, retired federal circuit court judge, right? And according to the CBA, she's supposed to be the independent counsel that legislates punishments or no punishments. The problem I have with where they worked at is that Goodell has this, buzzer where you can say, nope, it's going to be more, or for whatever reason. No, I think it should be less, which to me, I'm like, what is the independent, counsel for? I mean, what? So you could just say, well, there was another voice that kind of agreed with what I wanted to do. This had to have been a
compromise, right? This had to have been a compromise in bargaining. And this is something where, when they were going through the CBA, somebody said, no, we want to take this power away from Goodell. I don't think anybody would disagree with the fact that Roger Goodell probably has too much power. He's one of the most powerful men in the country, if not the world, and he's not even in the government. The amount of money this corporation is worth, the amount of money that this business generates, the revenue, the profits, the size of this business is insane. And it's all one big organization, and he has complete power over it. I mean, the guy makes $30 to $40 million a year. All right. And, I have a feeling they were sitting at the table and somebody said, Goodell has too much power. We need to give this power for deciding these things to somebody independent. And then the compromise was probably, okay, we'll do that. We'll let that process play out. But he's got that buzzer, right? So,
and to me, it sounds like it's a compromise, but in the end, I don't feel they compromise. And I'm surprised that the NFLPA went along with that. If they're going to have an independent counsel, somebody that the NFLPA can't argue with, and somebody that the commissioner can't argue with, then the decision would go down, and then that's the way it would be. And to me, I'm even surprised that Goodell relinquished his power in this. I don't know what, ego or what, but that would take him out of the loop as being the bad guy. You know, he could say, hey, after the independent counsel ruled, you know, this is where we're going to go with it, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now, I do understand if you look at it from a military sense, and that's my background, the Army sets rules, limits, etc. Units can add to that, but they can't take away. Okay. So now if they had phrased it that way, where like if she said 6 and then Goodell says, no, I think it should be 8, I could kind of go along with that. But the fact that he can make it more or less is almost like, well, what is she there for? What, just giving you some kind of a guidepost? It's why call her independent counsel when she could just be working on your staff, giving you recommendations. That's just my spill on that part.
I got you. And let me jump in on this real quick, Craig.
Okay.
So the reasoning that the players go this route, right, and they agree to this in the CBA is because they don't want the NFL doing the investigation. They don't want them to do the investigation and then in addition to that, be able to suggest the punishment, right? So they took a little bit of power away from Goodell and that office because they're saying, okay, we're going to give you a little bit, but at the same time, if this person does this investigation and comes to you and says, hey, listen, I think it should be 6 games. I think it should be 8 games. And you come out and say, no, I'm going to go 2 games or 22 games. It still makes him look bad. That still puts pressure on him and his office because if you're going to have somebody outside of the league who has that type of background, do that type of investigation, and then you're going to step on her toes and say, no, I'm going to do it this way. He knows better than that. And the players know that if he does that, it's going to put a lot of negative light on him in the NFL. That being said, go ahead.
Oh, what I was going to say, just to chime in on what you just said, what if this woman with her background and knowing that there have been 2 grand juries that have basically washed their hands of it, they said there's nothing to see here, okay, and she comes back and tells him, hey, this may look bad with all these people accusing him, but after looking at all the evidence and the timelines, and after talking to Deshaun, I don't see any way we should, grant him any punishment because he has not, I think the word is allocated to anything. He has not admitted to anything. He's maintained his innocence. There is enough evidence in front of me where I see that there are people who corroborate what he's saying. Mm-hmm. I don't think we should do anything. So then if he turns around and says, no, bump that, I'm going to punish him. To me, that's going to make the league look bad.
Right.
Because it's like, oh, so y'all just doing this not because you care about women in general. You just care about how you guys look.
Yeah. And I have a law enforcement background. I don't know if you know that, but.
Oh, okay. So thank you for your service.
Appreciate it. Military too. But anyways. So that's the whole purpose of this. I mean, essentially is having that independent person is taking that type of questioning out of the situation. If she comes to him and says, listen, I have done every bit of research, every piece of investigating that I can do, and I can't find anything that suggests that he's broke the conduct policy or has done anything illegal, then he's not going to suspend him. That's totally different because that is somebody who used to be a federal judge who's coming to the NFL and saying, listen to me, this guy didn't do anything wrong. He's not going to punish him. That's totally different because he's going to come out and he's going to state, this is why I did not punish him. This is the findings of the investigation. This is what she found. And this is what we're basing our investigation on. Right. So something will come out either way when this is decided. Her investigation is going to leak. Parts of it are going to leak. Things are going to come out and it's going to show one way or the other. Either he did these things or he didn't do these things. And it's going to be justified one way or another by the league. But
that's my last point on that. I feel like, and I was glad they finally said they were talking to him. I believe it's going to go down just like you said, Ryan. As far as this is what I have here, or these I want to ask you some questions in regards to what our investigation had brought up, and I want you to clarify. And then he gives his answers. If she turns around, which I'm thinking it might be the unthinkable, but I'm the only one so far saying 0 games. So I'm gonna stick to that and just see if I'm wrong. If she comes back and says, you know what, I after talking to him and after looking at everything, I agree with the 2 previous criminal grand juries that said there's nothing to see here. I believe your decision ought to be nothing. Or she might tell him, at this point, I don't see anything. So you can either just not do anything now, or you're going to have to wait until after the civil trials, because the situation with all the other people, either they were criminally charged and convicted, or they said, I'm going to settle. In which case the league took the stance of, well, even though legally you're not admitting culpability, we're going to say that you did, and this is why we're punishing you. He hasn't done any of that. So I'm looking at this to come up, and they're going to basically give for some people, the uncomfortable statement that they're not going to do anything to him. And because I feel like there are also other people in his ear talking to him, saying what I'm saying. What kind of black eye are we going to get? The man, first of all, and I'm not throwing out the race card, but that's what it is. He's black. We've had other people who have done or been accused of and or at least settled on doing things that were not black, and they basically, didn't get talked about. We gave them their 4 or 6 game suspension, and then that was it. Here we got this person who has not been found guilty in any criminal proceedings, has not admitted to any guilt, has not settled. In fact, you can look at what the other lawyer is doing. He's like reaching for straws now. The reason why they're waiting until next year is he's trying to get some other broader context or charge brought in, added to the case, in order to basically, from what legal opinion is, pressure Deshaun to settle. Okay, so the fact that they're waiting a whole year after everything that's going on with this and how far along this has been going, to me, it doesn't look good on their side. So I don't think anything's going to come down. I'm still going to hold to that. And if it does, and let's say next year rolls around and he is found innocent in the civil proceedings, what is that going to do to the league? What kind of repercussions is the league going to have from Deshaun's camp against the league, the owners, for punishing him, basically saying, well, they said you're guilty, so you look guilty, and he's not. That's going to be a black eye too.
I think it's a lose-lose situation for the league if we look at it from that perspective, because the alternative is them saying we can't find any evidence of wrongdoing. He's likely going to be, everything that all the allegations, we're not buying into them. They say we're not going to suspend him, and then it comes out that he is essentially guilty both civilly and or criminally. I think that would be a bigger black eye for the league. So I think from a PR perspective, that's probably what they're scared of. And I think they'd rather give him a smaller suspension now and say, hey, at least we got it right, than don't give him anything or drag it out and end up being wrong. Personally, I think that's a consideration, because let's be honest, does the NFL really care what happened? I don't think so. I don't think they give 2 flying Fs what no. Deshaun Watson did. They care how it affects their image and how it affects them from a PR perspective.
And their money flow. Yep.
So that to me is the biggest thing. I don't think they care. Now, so you're predicting 0 games suspension, and that to me implies that you feel this will be taken care of probably next year, when all this is said and done. Question: does anybody know if the Bahamas have extradition treaty with the United States? Can we turn this into a conspiracy theory?
Could
Don't
be.
do it. Don't do it. Don't do
Pretty
it.
sure you cannot go
I don't
to
think
the
they do,
Bahamas.
actually. I don't think they actually
Okay,
do.
so Deshaun Watson is organizing a trip for the offense. They're going to the Bahamas. Over 30 players are going reportedly. Is this the sorry, not sorry? I'm taking my $230 million and I'm not
hell
coming
yeah.
back.
Absolutely.
Here's your vacation. Sorry for the trouble.
Absolutely.
Hey,
If I'm
I
his
think-
teammate and I'm saying you just got paid $230 million, you better be taking me out for a dinner or something. I'm
Right.
just saying, you're new to this team, brother. You better give me something.
Well,
All right.
I think that's him trying to find a way to quickly bond with his teammates
Absolutely.
and do a good thing for the team, because I mean, I've heard of other, players like just as an example, OBJ buying special edition shoes for his teammates and just handing them out to him and stuff like that. So he's new to the team. He's new to a lot of the players there, not speaking to the rookies because they're new to everybody. And the fact that he's taking the whole offense, to me, that's like a step up because, you've had other players, and Baker's done it before, and other quarterbacks have, where they invite people to join them to a location and train and hang out. Well, he kind of did it in a more definitive way. He said, hey, look, will you come to the Bahamas with me? We're going to hang out and we're going to also train. So now we ain't just talking about someplace right here in the US of A. He wanted to take them to some island tropical paradise and they're going to hang out and they're also going to train because that part in there would say he's already reserved a field for them to use. So it's going to be a working vacation. But hey, what better way for you to hang out, get to know your teammates, who of course are going to probably be asking you the questions that everybody else is talking about here, and you get to tell them. They get to look into your eyes, look into your face, and see who you are in a more relaxed setting, especially after you have a few Mai Tais or whatever, and bond. So, and then I feel like since he's got the whole offense there, that's going to help them get their rhythm and timing together.
Your reputation in the public and your reputation with the teammates in your locker room and other players around the league are two different things. Those players don't give two rats' butts about what happens outside of the locker room. I'll tell you that right now. All they want to do is win and get a ring if they can. Everybody's got a conscience. Everybody's got moral compass. But those guys only care about during the season what is happening within that locker room. And that's essentially what this is all about, right? He's got a reputation that's following him to a new team, and he's doing everything possible to make sure that those teammates know that come hell or high water, he's going to ride or die with them. And that's essentially what it is. I mean, he's trying to rebuild his reputation with his teammates. And, from all accounts, he's beloved around the league among players. So,
yes.
I mean, it's just a no-brainer. They're two different things. Outside of the football facility is one thing, and inside in that locker room is a totally different situation. It's like two different worlds.
All right. So we are going to go ahead and close out the show with that. Norman, thanks for joining. Redleg, thanks for joining. Any last words, Redleg? I know you raised your hand there for a second.
Yeah, no, just a quick hop step back. People or fans really need to understand the NFL is a business, right? So when you're talking in a business and you're talking to HR is not there for you. HR is there for the business.
Yeah.
So when those players took that collective bargaining to the outside agent, that's taking HR, who's with the company, and removing them out. So that was just the last thing I wanted to say. But yeah, the NFL is a business. You can violate their policies and you're going to be punished, and not legally.
All right. Thank you, Norman and Redleg, for joining the show. We appreciate it, as always. We are the Dawgs Table, a Cleveland Browns roundtable discussion show. We are brought to you by Labatt Blue, Remax Edge Realty, the JC Group, and we are part of the Big Play Network. I'm your host, Craig Fountain, here with my co-host, Ryan Angelo. We are live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, so make sure you tune in next week to catch the show. 8 p.m. on Tuesdays, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or anywhere on the Big Play Network. That is it for today's show. Ryan, awesome discussion, and we're going to close this thing out. Until next time, go Browns.